This is the Other 22 Hours podcast. Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of the Other 22 Hours podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Shafer-Haiss.
And I'm your other host, Michaela Anne, and we are on episode 107. And this week we're featuring our conversation with Caitlyn Smith.
Caitlyn Smith is a singer-songwriter, mostly operating in the country pop world. She's written songs that have been recorded by Garth Brooks, Dolly, Parton, Kenny Rogers, Meghan Trainor, John Legend, Avicii, Miley Cyrus, Lady A, Rascal Flatts, Chris Isaak.
Just to name some of them. Many more.
Jeez. On that, she's released 3 of her own records. All of those have come out on Sony, a major label, and she has just recently, as of a year ago, left that deal and started releasing stuff on her own independently, which we definitely touch on in this episode.
Caitlyn has also been nominated or won awards from Critics' Choice Awards, ACM, and CMT Music Awards. She has toured with people like George Strait, Reba McEntire, Little Big Town, Old Dominion, and has performed at festivals like Lollapalooza, ACL, Americana Fest.
Quite the resume. So on this, we get into a lot of nitty-gritty on the process, being in the writing room, being a staff songwriter, as she says, there's a lot of Nashville terminology and approach to this conversation. So for those of you that are not in Nashville, I think we did like a pretty good job of annotating the conversation and adjusting. But you'll hear Caitlyn say staff songwriter a lot. So basically what that is your profession. Maybe you're getting like paid a salary or a draw from your publisher to be a writer. You are a person that goes in and helps artists write songs that they want to write.
Yeah, and we get to dig into the financial realities of that and how the industry has changed so much, how streaming has honestly decimated the income for songwriters. And then, of course, we get into the more holistic emotional practice of writing and the importance of preparation for creative sessions, efficient use of time. She loves a good commute, and it's really fun overall.
Yeah, I had to ask the question, when you're in a writing room with such big name artists, like, how do you tell them that the line is just not cutting it? Like, how do you not feel like an imposter to be like, Miley, that line just isn't cutting it. So we get into all that. It's a wide-reaching conversation, but as always, some of the things we touch on in the conversation come directly from the subscribers to our Patreon. It's because, as you know, they get advance notice of who our guests are. You can submit your questions, topic ideas, thoughts, whatever you'd like to let us know about the artists that we're going to talk to. That is available to you. It is also the sole way that we're able to fund producing this show, which takes a lot of resources, even for a relatively small show like our own. So if that sounds intriguing, there's a link below in our show notes.
And for those of you who are visual and really want to see my tired eyes from being up so many times this past evening with our 2-month-old baby, every conversation is available on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button as well.
Seems like nothing. Seems like everybody says it, but it really does help us a lot. Please just hit that. And with that, if you're listening on your phone, any device, just hit follow on that. All of these are like little tiny acts that really help us grow this show and reach new audiences, get new artists, get new ideas to share back with you guys. But with that, here is our conversation with Caitlyn Smith.
You look so pretty and fresh.
Thanks. I took a shower. I got a shower this morning. Raleigh took the kids, so I got time to put on makeup.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What a blessing. I'm going to make a whole bunch of content today, guys. Today's the day.
Yep.
That is such a real thing. Whenever my manager is like, can you make a video or something? I'm like, it's going to be a while before I look presentable to put a camera on me at all. Mm-hmm. But I do the podcast so often. Just granted, our youngest is 2 months old and he was up like every hour last night.
Are you guys so tired? Oh,
it hasn't been that bad, honestly.
It's like a more subversive tired to me. With our first one, I was like, I'm exhausted. I felt like a zombie. Like my face felt heavy. And this time I'm like, no, I'm on it. It's cool. It's fine. And then the more I think about it, I'm like, I don't think I can string more than 2 thoughts together.
Yeah.
And my memory lasts maybe 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
Lack of sleep is so huge, y'all. And you're in it right now. But the baby cave, there's an end. There's an end to it.
Exactly.
So glad to finally have you on. Thank you for taking the time. And we always like to start with just, how are you today? And where are you overall, but also like within your creative path?
How am I today? Today, I feel great. The sun is shining. I got a shower. There's a lot of great things. I just got back from Salt Lake City this weekend. I played a couple shows at Sundance. And Raleigh and I got to go without the kids.
Whoa.
And just have 3.5 days of like, we could hear ourselves think. And that was amazing. So I'm feeling pretty great after that. And where am I in my creative journey? Physically, I'm in Minnesota. We split time between the two cities. And so creatively, I'm in the kind of working on a new record mode. So I've been writing and recording and getting all of like the brainstorming, all the content and all of the things, getting ready to get into a full record release mode later this year. So that's where I am. It's kind of a lot.
Do you like that phase, this kind of brewing phase?
Do I like it? There are some parts that I love about it. Getting in the writing room with people that I love and making stuff up is one of my favorite places to be. So I love doing that. But this time around, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I've done 3 records in the last 8 years on a major label. After the 3rd record, I asked out of my label deal with Sony, and now I've been releasing stuff as an independent artist. So all of this to say is, I'm now in the boat of doing all the things, right?
Yeah.
Where I did have like a team around me. Now it's just like the juggle is very real. And so you ask me, do I love this phase? And I have a hard time like giving you an emphatic, yes, I love this phase because the juggle as an independent artist it's a lot. Yeah. And so some days I don't like it at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, there are some days where I'm even like, I wish I just wanted to be a songwriter. I could just show up and write songs. But there's something inside my blood and guts and bones that wants to be an artist and loves to be an artist. And so I've got to, make records and put them out. And because part of that, I just got to get it out. It's part of my process. It's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
And I love it and I don't.
Yeah. I really want to hear more about, because I think you and I went on a walk a year ago when your youngest, was that a year? Because I was not pregnant yet.
Yeah.
And your youngest was, I think, 3 months old.
Oh, little boy.
Yeah.
And now he's full on running the house, which is what.
He was sleeping the whole time back then.
So nice.
But I remember at that time you were getting out of your deal. You hadn't started releasing stuff on your own, and we were talking about it because I was also planning to get out of my indie label deal. And I haven't yet. I've released a couple songs, but I haven't yet gone into a full album release mode on my own. Yeah. And I'm noticing I have like so much decision fatigue because now it's real. Just me.
Yes.
And not like, oh, well, we use the labels designer and we use the labels, like now it's like, wait. And also like paying for everything yourself, which if
like
you feel
in the moment rather than like putting it on the
that's
account.
The hard part to remember is that when you have a deal with a record label, you're still paying for everything. You just don't see it. I mean, you can look at reports.
Yeah. You're not watching it come out of your bank account.
Exactly. Or like,
or
like on a credit card and like balancing interest and all that stuff. So I always have to remind myself, like in the long term, when you're in this for life, you will start making money sooner, but like balancing how much you're investing of your own money and like making the decision to not want to put your head in the sand and be like, I'll just let the label own everything and rack up the debt. There's pros and cons to each side. So
totally.
Do you feel comfortable elaborating on like what you've seen so far, the pros and cons being now that you've gone through a little bit of releasing on your own?
I would say at the end of the day, I'm still feeling like the pros are outweighing the cons. The obvious cons are that you don't have a team of people around you. Even like maybe all artists are like this, but I love to have a good deadline and someone like keeping that for me. And when there isn't that solid deadline, I can fudge it a little bit. So that's that's the con, I would say. So there's less of like, I gotta get this done tomorrow. There's less country music emergencies that are happening.
I love that.
Which, let's be honest, there's no such thing anyways, but people invent it. And I would say, I think the con is just feeling a little bit on an island and feeling like I'm in this journey pushing this boulder up a hill kind of by myself. That's difficult. But I have seen these pros that are really magical where when you are balancing it yourself and doing it all yourself, all of the small little wins feel so much more victorious. Like because you just spent 3 hours trying to figure out your mailing list and getting it all laid out, and you just sent it to 5,000 people, like, and that's a really big deal. Like those tiny little wins, you feel it better. And I think even being able to release music independently, put it out there, and then shortly after you can see the money come back, a lot of this is cool. Where when you're on a label, you put it out there.
You never see it.
You're the only one not making money out of everybody.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, also the pro of it just being like on my own timeline and it being like really whatever I want. There's no voices being like, you should make it sound more like the radio, or you should, not that I had that intense of voices, but I did a little bit of like, if you made this single sound more like the radio, and then it creatively definitely changed how I made the music, where now I just can make whatever I want.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. When you started writing for this new record, did you know that you were going to be out of your label deal, or did you have this collection of songs and realize, oh, I don't want to hand this over to a label, which was Michaela's experience?
Oh, well, I guess the songs that are written recently, I knew that's what was going to happen. But I've also written a lot of songs now outside of the deal because I've been out of the deal for a year. So just even writing in that headspace of like, this is completely my own thing. But there are a few older songs too that I just love the songs and I had written before I got out of the deal. And I just was like, oh, I don't know. So
that fits. Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit of each.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Aaron was referencing, for me, I wrote a record and then recorded the record because the songs felt so personal and so about this like momentous time in our life of becoming a mother and my mom's health. And we recorded them here in our recording studio that Aaron built with his dad. It all felt so like, this is mine. This is ours. I can't let a company own it. And that was kind of my changing decision where I think my younger self was like, even with songs that felt meaningful to me. And yeah, you have your songs, but like the recordings of them, because of course you can always re-record them or whatever.
Yeah.
But I felt kind of like, whatever, another company will own it and like it's going to help me get what I want out of this career path. And this experience felt so much more like, this is so deeply personal. I cannot imagine losing my rights to it. And some nameless man, because the label I was on was sold to another company. So it wasn't even like I know the owner anymore. It felt so morally wrong to me too, that I was like, wait, money trumps all of the time and creativity and experience and emotion and everything that we put into this creation. Money trumps it all. They just get to own it just because they have the capital. That doesn't seem fair. Where I understand other people are like,
totally.
Well, yeah, of course they're buying it. And I'm like, no, my structure of the equation now has shifted. I'm not accepting of that's just how it is anymore.
Yeah, totally. I feel that. I don't really feel like I have anything to add to that. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Well, and your record that you did put out was so, for me as a fan of yours, it's so interesting because we change as artists and then our work can reflect depending on what kind of artists we are. So there are definitely artists out there who are like, we just keep with the times and put out music that we think is going to do well on radio, whatever. And then there's artists that are like creating and evolving and their work is reflecting what's happening in their life. And so that means that you're going to lose some fans probably who maybe aren't resonating with that experience at that time. Yeah. And you're going to gain some fans. I resonated so deeply with your new songs because they were so overtly about motherhood and family life. And that's exactly what I'm in right now. So I think that's like an interesting, you know, when talking about not having any voices in your ears.
Yeah.
Did you have any hesitation of really going deep into that, of this is really my life right now?
I don't think I had hesitation at all. I think with this new record, my compass for it is I really want to release songs that I have lived, lessons that I am learning, things that are really true. I think, you know, I started off this whole music career in Nashville just as a songwriter, just writing for other people. And so in that scenario, like I've gotten really good at just putting on different hats and making up stories, whether or not they're true to my life. And even on some of my records in the past, I've just released a song because that's a great song, but I haven't lived that experience. I've made it up in my head, but it's not necessarily true. Or like I'll release breakup songs, but I've been married for 15 years. There's a disconnect where I'm like, it's a good song. And so on this album specifically, I'm really trying to not just cut a song because it's a good song. I want it to be true to the place where I'm at in my life. So that's a little bit new and I'm excited about it. It's a little bit of a challenge too, because I do love the drama of the breakups and like the drama that like relational songs that I've written in the past can give you. And I do find that like in my daily life right now, the drama is a lot smaller, like because I'm dealing with like little humans and you know, my marriage is in a great spot. So it's like, it feels a little, what's the dramatic thing that I can write about right now? But that's all right. I always think if you can't think of anything to write about, you're just not paying attention. Like there's always something amazing that you can pull, even if your life feels a little boring and mundane.
Yeah, but there's people out there also who relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think about that all the time because in the mundane of family life, the challenge of making that a compelling, beautiful story is really amazing. And it's also really relatable because that's most people's lives day in and day out. I feel like as a listener, I was so into the dramatic breakup songs because even like we've been together 17, 18 years, but you know, in a long relationship, you have dramatic times as well.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
now I currently feel exhausted by those songs.
That's so true. That's amazing.
That was like 25-year-old me. Like,
that's amazing. Also, this mom's way too tired to go there emotionally.
Yeah.
Can we can we not?
Yeah. I also think like, as you mentioned, like being independent now and like having to push this boulder up the hill, like by yourself, even when you're on a label deal or writing, like just trying to, when we're living this career that's based on our art and we're trying to juggle like and rein in and grab onto ambition and run with that, there is inherently just, it feels like so much struggle all the time because there's like all this drive and just no secret that the music industry is not the easiest. That like Michaela was saying, like a lot of people's lives in my observation are like pretty chill, pretty easy.
Yeah.
I'll fully admit that like I'm in a phase of life right now where like I could totally have a job that I just went to and then came home and I was done. There was like, and that was it. And like I had a weekend.
To us in the music industry, we're like, that sounds so nice.
Exactly. Like
some days it does.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, just like having to constantly think like 4 steps ahead, like, okay, what comes next? Okay, so this fall, this is happening. I need to do this. I need to get this in line and like that in line. It's like, woo.
Yes, it is a lot, but also you are the way you are. Like you're an artist, right? And if you were in those confines, you would probably die. So like there's a reason why your personality is doing that, right? So
maybe temp work is for me. You know, maybe I need to just be like, maybe it's like a month at a time, you know, just like moonlight as a data entry specialist or whatever it's called. I don't know.
That's perfect.
Give me 40 hours a week on a spreadsheet and I'll be like, you know what? I like going out to my studio.
Yeah, that honestly sounds so fun, just typing things. I would love that job.
In a past life, I have done that and it is two thumbs down.
Okay. Thank you.
I could attest. Horrible scenario. Not for me.
Yeah. I need to be put in check sometimes because my head definitely goes to like the grass is greener kind of thing.
For sure. I think that's human.
Yeah.
We all do it.
Speaking of the grass is greener, I'm just like really admiring the room that you're in.
Thank you. Thank you so
and, like,
much.
The light that's coming through the window. It looks beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
You were saying you split your time now?
Yeah. So we spent 3.5 years building this little home up in Minnesota. So now we split time. We do summers and also just seasons where we're like, get a little burnt out of Nashville. We were in Nashville like all the beginning of this year. And we're like, okay, we need a break now. And so it's kind of nice because I can pop in there, create, buzz around, meet people, and then come back home and kind of like get a nice unplug and reset away from the chaos that is Nashville.
That sounds amazing.
Which is nice. But yeah, we love it. I'm watching the chickens out the window right now.
Do you have snow on the ground?
No, the snow has melted.
Is your husband also in the music industry?
He is. So He has done a handful of things in the music industry. He's a songwriter. He plays in my band as a guitar player and sings, does demos and things like that. And so does it all. He's also like my engineer when I'm like, what do we need to do in Pro Tools to do the Pro?
Yeah.
He always helps me. So that's really nice.
Like as a whole family, you guys do the back and forth?
Yeah. So it depends on the season, but we homeschool our older boys because we can kind of have this flexibility of like, okay, we're on the road in this season or we're in Nashville this season and kind of split it up. So yeah, we'll take the whole family and the dog to Nashville and do like a big chunk and then drive everybody back. It is a little chaotic right now. So we're still trying to figure out like our cadence. So like next week, I'll go in for 3 days without the family and just go right and then come back here. And that's great too. What I like about that and taking trips away from the fam is that I can wake up and I can hear myself think. And I can have like a morning that's not like getting everybody ready and doing all the things, right? And I can just like sit and think of ideas. And it's a really nice mom's vacation.
Working.
Yeah.
Obviously, I miss them.
Of course.
You don't have to add that. That's okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, I miss them, but yeah.
I was just talking to a friend yesterday who's a singer-songwriter and just had her first baby and is navigating like, how am I going to go on the road and how am I going to do this? And like the deep mom guilt of leaving. And we were discussing that and like how long is okay to leave and at what age is it okay to leave them? And like, we were talking about, especially in this profession where everything feels like a choice. So it's not like we have a boss saying you have to fly here for the week because you're a lawyer or whatever, where we can say like, this is my job. Even though this is our job, it can feel like more of a choice. And I hear this so much more from moms who just feel so guilty for leaving. And I always have to remind myself and each other like, okay, well, one, what's the different expectation for fathers? And also like we're spending so much time with our children. It's okay to take a few days or even a week tour. It never feels good, but sometimes it does feel great to get a break. And that's okay to admit because we're still full people that need dads too. It's okay to feel like I really enjoyed my time away. You don't get that much time away.
I don't get time away.
Aaron never goes away.
No. I used to be on the road all the time. And right before the pandemic, kind of 2019, I started pulling it back. So I'm mostly like, our studio is 40 feet behind our house. And so I'm mostly in here. Played a festival in South Carolina. This was like 2 years ago now. And I was supposed to stay for an extra day after we were playing the first day of the festival. And I was like, oh, I'll just stay for the second day. There's a lot of friends playing. It'd be great. It'd be awesome. And Michaela was like, yeah, like take time. I think our daughter was like 18 months at the time or something. And after our set, you know, I was back where we were staying and it must have been like 2 a.m. I'm like, I'm good. I changed my flight till like the middle of the afternoon the next day. Just left, you know, woke up the next morning. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm out. Gotta go.
That
like,
is so real.
I think like at the same time, I also bought like a lawnmower blade. I think it was like 2 a.m. I'm like, I need a new lawnmower blade. And I should probably go home.
I miss my grass.
I know that like I thoroughly lose all my like cool rock band cred, but you know, I did it. That's what happened. So
it's so funny because I do think like when you plan it out, you're like, yeah, I'm feeling overwhelmed here at home. I'm going to plan it out. My day's away, schedule it, great. But then when you're finally in it and you're like on day whatever, and you're like, this does suck, I do miss home. Like your past self is like, this is going to be fine. And then when you're in it, like, oh, miss my kids.
We've both noticed that like we don't need that much time to feel refreshed. We went to Miami for our wedding anniversary for like 3 days, 2 days. And we were like, after one day, we were like, wow, this was amazing to have like meals out alone and like sit and read a book. And then we were like, we're good. We can go back. We miss her.
That's amazing. Honestly, for me, it takes a class in an afternoon. And I'm like, oh, I'm a new person. I have time away. Like,
I have free choice and free will. Like I could just go and do that. On the missing out, I'm wondering about like the opposite side. Now that you are splitting your time and taking trips to come back to Nashville, do you feel like out of the mix, missing out on what's happening here? Or do you still feel involved?
It depends on the day. Sometimes I have some FOMO and sometimes I really miss the community. It's like if I have a few weeks here where I'm not touching base in Nashville, I feel a little like sad. But then I pop into town and I write with the people that I love and get coffee with the other people that I love. And I feel right back in it. So I feel like I am split in the middle. Like some days I'm really like feeling disconnected. And then when I'm in it, I'm intentional about the time that I have and try and plug back in. So the juggle is real. I don't know.
Yeah. Obviously, we haven't experienced yet, but like we lived in New York City for like 12 years before we came here, somewhere close to that. And I see the same thing between New York and in Nashville, where like it seems like you can stay in the mix without actually living in the town because everybody is so busy and they have so many things going on.
Right.
It's like if you're coming to town every 6 weeks and seeing all these people, there are people that I love in town that I create a lot with that I don't see every 6 weeks.
I do think there's a handful of people that don't even know we live in Minnesota like half the time.
Yeah.
That's fine. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk about a little bit of the brain management of writing when you do go to Nashville and you have these designated rights and you're co-writing versus when you're home in this kind of idyllic landscape and you have the beauty, but also the chaos of your children running around? Do you have any like rituals or things that you need to do to be able to get in the headspace to write in either place?
Yeah. In Nashville, I probably write 3 days a week. And I love a commute. People think I'm nuts, but I'm like, if someone's like, I'm in Nolensville, and I'm like, yay, I get 40 minutes in the car. It's bizarre, but I love that time, even if it's 20 minutes to drive into Nashville, that time to listen to music, or sometimes I just sing. I have the radio off and I just make stuff up and sing into my phone and like, or just time to think in quiet, which is so nice. And so kind of having that ritual pre and post writing session in Nashville is really nice. And then I also try to implement like a daily walk into my day. And that is just so good for my headspace. I get really crotchety really fast if I don't. I am like a houseplant. I need the sun. I need my water. And like, if I don't get those things, I start to shrivel up for sure. And so even making sure like I'm getting outside in nature, I think that's both spaces. But I have to be more intentional about it in Nashville because we live in the neighborhood. And then here, creating is a little bit harder here. But I try and think of the time here as like, I try and fill my cup. It's all the other things that creatively fill you, like putting my hands in the garden or like spending time with the chickens or walking in our woods, like things that are just soul filling. I feel like it all then can translate into writing. And then, you know, I've got our piano here and we've got like a little studio. And so like for me, I maximize like nap times. God bless a nap time for the baby. That's like a solid couple hours to just do what I want. And I try and do something creative if I can in that time. So it's two different headspaces for sure. But I think they're both great. I love them both.
Yeah, I love that approach of filling your cup and emptying your cup, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, relating it to when I was touring all the time, that's how I viewed touring. Because like, you know, so many hours of travel. Utilize that time as like intake. I'd listen to things, I'd read things. You've toured, you can't play with chickens or be in nature all that much. But I'd use that as intake so that way when I got back to Nashville or New York when we were there, like that was like, I had all this inspiration, all that output. And
and man, touring really inspires, I think. Going in new places and like, that is just like, soak all that in.
I don't really have a drive to tour much anymore. But I have a real drive to like be in other places and like meet other people, see different ways of life. So I've just been trying to put it out there. And so if anybody's listening, of like just making a destination record of going somewhere, you know, Costa Rica or Tahiti or, you know, New Zealand.
That sounds nice. That's New Zealand. That sounds great. I love it. Anyone want to go to Italy? I do.
Yeah.
Exactly. But no, absolutely. Like of being able to interact with other people and see different places and like see new things is really inspiring.
Yeah, I agree.
Hearing what you're saying about the different places, I think you learn as you grow older and your life gets, I don't want to say bigger, but becomes more. You have more to take care of, more to do. Your creativity becomes more of your job, what you rely on. I think about the responsibility of caring for it, how that can be a real shift.
Totally.
Especially when you're younger, maybe you don't have a partner, you don't have like other life responsibilities, and creativity can kind of flow and you can do it when you want and you can do it right and spend all day. And the older you get, I think that's the shift, is recognizing the responsibility to care for it.
Wow.
Okay, what do I need to do to make sure I can make the space and the conditions to let this come to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, even the thought of like, you don't want to waste time either. And so like, if you're setting Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for your writing days, you want to make sure that when you walk in those rooms, like, you're not just like, a zombie.
Yeah.
Like, that's time that you're spending away from your family, or maybe you're paying for childcare. Like, that also is real. Like, cool, I'm paying for a babysitter or
We
my
can't
husband.
talk.
You know,
Yeah,
like
we can't talk this whole session.
We can't waste time here. Let's make something quickly, but also that matters. Real quick.
I don't think she would mind me naming people, so I'm going to take the risk and do it. But Tristan, who's a great musician and songwriter here in Nashville and owns a vintage shop, she was telling me she has 2 children, and she's been like really helpful to me and many of us transitioning into motherhood. And she was sharing her experience of writing with Vanessa Carlton before Tristan had children. And she was like, it was kind of like shocking to me. Like, I would go to a writing session with Vanessa and it would be like, very like, let's get down to business. We're writing. We'd like do it efficiently, be done after like 3 hours or whatever. And she was like, and then I realized once I had kids, because she's got a babysitter or she's got this. And it's like, we got to get the work done. Actually, it's not a downer. It's actually really helpful. It's a tightrope. Creative work takes patience and time, but also let's keep it moving. Like, it's this kind of constant, like, okay, maybe we get to the end of 3 hours and we didn't get it. Let's go take our time and go on our walks and live our life. And then maybe that line that we were stuck on is going to come while you're in the shower, you know, something.
Which it always does. Why is it the shower? It's just like, all the epiphanies happen there.
But what were you saying about enjoying a commute and like listening or singing and all of that? It made me think, I guess I do that, even though I don't have much of a commute. Most of my writes happen here. But it's like, there's like a preparation to like get in the headspace because time is so tight and I need to do it efficiently. That like, I think, and I'm realizing this as I'm talking, I think like when I first got to parenthood, it felt a little bit of a cram or a rush and all that. And like, I'm starting to realize that like that preparation mentally is actually showing respect for the process and showing respect for creativity. It's like, I'm going to show up like as in this as I can, like from the start, because I respect this process. I respect like what can happen and what we can make here.
Totally. I love that.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was a stream of conscious realization of the whole process there. But speaking of process, like writing for so many other artists like you do, when you shift in your writing for yourself, has there ever been, use the analogy, like, you know, putting on so many hats, has it ever felt like you have to put like your own hat on? And does it feel like you're putting on like yourself as a character? Or are you able to like actually tap into yourself and pull all of that away?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, there's obviously a big distinction between like going and writing with Miley Cyrus or like an artist like that, where I'm like just getting like great melody ideas or great, you know what I mean? And like there to facilitate the best out of that artist, right? I actually look at writing with other artists almost like a service job. I just need to help this person, right? Pull it out and pull out their truth. So when I go in and I'm writing for myself, it's a completely different feeling, right? Because it's really like looking in the mirror. It's really looking inward. I don't think that I'm putting on the character of Caitlyn Smith. I don't feel like that. It does feel like I'm looking inside, looking back at my memories and my experience or thinking about the struggles. Like it is a kind of an excavation. More than just like, do you know what I mean? I'm going to put on my own hat. It feels more inward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you write with others for yourself?
I do. There's a handful of people that I'll maybe start like a half song and I'll be like, I really want to bring this to that person because I know they're going to help me figure it out. There's like a small handful of people that I kind of trust. And really it's with those people that I can feel most myself. And really just let down all the gates, say all the vulnerable things of what's really going on inside. Like, it's just my safe people.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the way you feel as the artist in that right? The way you feel around these certain people? Has that influenced the way that you show up in rights as the writer and not the artist?
That is such an interesting question and not something I sit and think about very often. Because I think that there's a slightly different version of myself that I show up as. If I'm the artist, I'm coming in, I feel more of a responsibility to have the idea, definitely to sing the demo, whatever it is. Like I have more responsibility to like take up a certain amount of space in the room. When we're not writing for my record and I know there's another artist in the room, this is what we're writing for, I don't feel like it's appropriate for me to take up that much space. I take up more of a back burner, right? And so it is a slightly different version that I put out. So maybe a little more subdued.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a front person, but I've noticed if I've been doing like a lot of like three-way writes where I can kind of occupy more of the producer track guy role, then there's the artist and the writer, just absorbing and collaborating with this person that's there that is just in the writer role. I'll notice that I come in when it's just me and the artist. And so I'm occupying more of a writer role there.
Yeah.
It influences how I show up because I can see how that person just being the writer shows up for the artist, noticing how everything kind of interplays.
For sure. That makes complete sense. And we all kind of morph socially, which I think maybe it's just more noticeable in the writing room when you're creating something together. It happens at a party too, I guess. We all just kind of mirror each other and like give and take. I don't know.
I think writing together is such a fascinating sociological, psychological like study, examination, because sometimes you're going in with people that you don't know at all.
Yeah.
And writing about very emotional things. And it can sometimes be under the protective veil of, well, we're writing a song. So I'm not like sitting down with a stranger and telling you my deepest, darkest secrets, but I could be, but you might not ever know, but we're pulling from maybe experiences, maybe, and it's this great experiment of like, how vulnerable can you be with each other that I feel like in regular civilian life, you don't get that many opportunities to do.
Yeah, totally. It seems appropriate in the writing room.
Yeah.
And I do find like if you can tap into that vulnerability in the writing room, the songs are better.
Yeah.
Like way better. Because then everybody knows what we're talking about. And we don't have to like weirdly interject our own story, which I've been in those scenarios too, where like, I think I know what you're talking about. And it's like this weird dance. Let's just put out a dirty laundry. You feel that too? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's easier when you can get to the bottom of things.
Yeah.
And the guts of things.
And it's like really helpful to understand. I think as songwriters, you learn more and more. We just recently had Roseanne Cash on, and I don't think she said it on the podcast, but I was reading all these interviews with her and she said, we don't have original thoughts or original emotions. Like we all experience the same emotions at a certain point. And songwriting and art and music helps us recognize, oh, you feel that too. Absolutely. I'm not alone in this. I think I'm so unique, but actually there's great comfort to know like, no, this isn't an original feeling. We all have these feelings. And that's a really amazing aspect of the magic of songwriting specifically, I think.
Totally. Someone had asked me on like a Q&A last week on Instagram, how do I know like what songs I save for myself and what songs I want to actually put out there? And it is those songs that I feel like, obviously you keep coming back to, but it's like that I actually feel and believe. And I'm like, if I believe this and it makes me really feel this feeling, someone else has got to feel this too. Yeah. And so like, if it's moving me, it hopefully will move someone else. And that's like the best way to gauge whether or not I put a song out. So
yeah.
Along the lines of that, like trusting yourself, trusting your judgment and all of that. I want to know some about your experience of writing with some of these larger artists that you've written with or written for. What's your experience with that as far as trusting your judgment, saying like, nah, that line's not great. We could do better. Like being that editor that you need to do to show up to be a good co-writer, to like, because like for me, when I've been in situations where I really respect the artist, I'm like, yeah, cool. I feel like almost paralyzed.
Don't be a yes person.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally. Which that has been something I've just had to learn over the years how to do it. I think the best line that I've come up with when something the artist says is meh is, man, that is so close. Like that is almost it. Or it's like, you're not like cutting down the line. You're like, that's a brilliant idea. I'm like, okay, the emotion of that is right. What's a different way we can say that? There's just like ways, little sentences you can say to be like, not be like, that line sucks.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't ever sit there thinking that line sucks. Like that thought probably never pops in my head in a write, because they're just trying to get some sort of emotion out. So I'm always kind of, you just dig through, well, what is it that you're trying to say? And what's the feeling? But it is such a delicate line of depending on the artist that you're writing with too, and their ego. Like dancing around that and working with that is tricky, but I think you just be honest.
Yeah.
It's hard though.
Have you ever had kind of like imposter syndrome in that situation where you're like, wait, who am I to say?
Who am I to say that this line is not right?
Yeah. Or has it always just kind of been like an intuition thing where you're like, this just doesn't feel right?
It's usually an intuition thing. And usually if I'm like, I don't know about that line, or it's feeling like a little off, or whatever it is, we're kind of talking about a line, whether or not to do it. And if the artist in there is just like, no, I do think this is right, and this is why, like, I'll go toe to toe a little bit with them, but at the end of the day, it's their song and they're the ones singing it. So I need to just let them do it. But I will try to, like, for the best of the song, I'll try and like insert myself. But at some point you have to be like, okay, you can say that if you want.
Yeah.
Your song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, that you don't ever think, oh, this line sucks. I think that's a good thing to share for people listening who might be more aspiring songwriters and like still struggling with feeling comfortable enough to contribute ideas and situations. Because I think that can be so crippling if you're afraid that like, I'm going to judge what comes out of my mouth and the person across from me is going to judge, when really I think the best writers aren't judging. It's because we all understand you have to like let it flow out, and you might be like, yeah, that's not usable or whatever, but never with a judgment of that's so terrible, because that's going to just block any ideas from coming.
And that's so true. Like if you have an idea that's kind of floating up in the writing room and you're like, maybe this is something, it's almost like you can't keep going unless you like, at least for me, because I'm like, I'm just sitting on this. It's almost like this is a terrible analogy. It's like a burp or something.
Yeah.
And you've gotta, it's so stupid, but you gotta just let it out, because also you never know if that, and maybe it is a terrible idea, but you say that terrible idea and someone go, ha ha ha, and be like, but that makes me think of this.
Exactly.
And then you get the hook. You just never know. Not being precious with ideas is so important. And I mean, that's another piece of writing that I try and cultivate, just like a comfortability where we're all throwing garbage on the pile and we're only going to pick up the most beautiful things, but let's throw it out in the room just to get it out.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's super helpful. Yeah. I think. It helps me like with my like insecurity too. Still, even after writing 20 years, I'll still be like, that line is really stupid. But I'm like, here's some garbage, and then throw it out. It helps me not be so insecure.
Yeah, it's that vulnerability. It might not be a vulnerable sentence or line or words, but it's a vulnerable act of being like, I know this is horrible.
Right.
What does this do?
Yeah, totally.
And that's totally the paradigm I was thinking when you were saying like, not saying this line sucks or that's bad. Looking at it like we all say terrible things. We all have horrible ideas, like everybody.
Absolutely.
I would love to see like the lines that John Lennon never wrote down. I'm sure he wrote
or that he wrote down.
That he did.
Oh, absolutely. Think of all the songs he wrote that never saw the light of day. I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah, I always like to reference Anne Lamott, the memoir writer, and she has an essay about the shitty first draft. And I always apply that to songwriting as well, of like, you have to have the shitty first draft. Like you have to put everything on the page to then carve and edit and work to get the gold. But if you keep it all in your mind and try and filter through, I don't think it's as successful. I think it's too much like filtering. Get it on the page.
Totally. I also like used to get really nervous about, especially if you're like in the room with bigger writers or like a big artist and you want to get the best song, you want to get a hit, you want whatever it is, like the expectation that you put on the right. But I think over the years, the expectation is less of we need to make the hit or we need to make a song and I'll make the record. If you just approach it like, I'm going to show up, we're just going to write the best song that we can that day. And it might not ever see the light of day, but it's just part of the creative journey. Showing up, putting out your heart and your truth in the best way that you can. It might never hear the light of day, but 3 songs later might be like the song. And it's just like the practice of just getting it out is so important and not expecting that every single write is going to be like the song.
I think that comes with time, because at least in my experience, like I would hold it so preciously. If this has to be something, this has to be something big, because I didn't have the trust that there would be more.
Right.
You know, and I've never written with artists anywhere near the level that you have, but I could imagine that like when you get this opportunity to write with somebody that has had all of this success, you're like, oh, this is it. I can't mess this up.
It is anxiety inducing, but you just have to trust the process. And like you said, show up prepared in those scenarios and just do your best. And there's so much that you just can't control. Or you could write a great song with that artist and they just don't feel it for them. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the realities of the business of songwriting and how it's changed in the time that you've been in the business, as far as like, as far as the reality of like how royalty and payment has changed, you know, and also like how access and getting cuts has changed, and to whatever degree you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, totally. Where we are today is a whole new world. It is a whole new world than when I first moved to town. And I think, you know, even back up 10 years ahead of that, and the writer that's, even older than us would just tell us even more about it. But I will say, when I moved to town, you could recoup your deal on an album cut. So an example with numbers, let's say you get 30 grand for your draw as a songwriter, right? But like back when I moved to town, 2010, this would have been. People were still selling physical albums, and people were still going platinum. Like every week there would be a platinum party, right? And multi-platinum, that was still a thing. And that was like how we'd recoup our deals. And so like my first cut was on a Jason Aldean record. It was wild. I remember he went 4 times platinum or something, which is like, doesn't really happen like that anymore. And so recoupment happened a lot easier. You could actually make a good living off of just getting an album cut.
For people who don't know what that means, like if you get an advance or draw from your deal, you get a lump sum of money, and then you have to bring in enough income that pays the publishing company back.
Yeah.
And then you start getting paid royalties, which is a split. Some of the royalties goes to the publishing company and some goes to you, right?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah. And then by album cut, you're meaning a non-single.
A non-single, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
I'm really talking inside baseball here.
Well, because there's a lot of listeners that aren't, like, people in Nashville are like, oh yeah, album cut, like recoup, like blah, blah, blah.
Album
like,
cut, yeah.
People outside of Nashville are like, what
What's that mean?
Hold on.
What does that mean?
So, yeah.
Okay, Mom. It's this. Did you sell another one of your songs? Okay. When you move to town, just getting like a track 9 on a record could be a great thing. Nowadays, with streaming being where the majority of the consumer is right now, you do not make enough money on album streams to recoup your deal. Even if you have some of the top artists cutting your songs, the money is still in radio and radio singles. And that kind of seems where it's at. Otherwise, if you get like a sync placement, those can be really helpful as well. But it is just a lot harder as a songwriter, if you're not writing radio singles, to make money just as a staff songwriter. With the way that streaming pays out right now, the staff songwriter community will continue to shrink unless we can figure out a way to change the payment system. It's a bad deal right now. And so it's tough because that also changes how a songwriter shows up to a session. Because if you think about the staff songwriters on Music Row, how are they going to recoup their deals? How are they going to feed their families and make money? A lot of these kids have to show up and they have to shoot for the single. So now you've got a lot of writers not necessarily going, how can I sit down and craft the best song from my heart today? They're going, such and such artist is looking for their next single. I need to write it to sound like the radio. They wouldn't say that. It needs to be about these 4 things. Beers and trucks and girls. And so now you've got a whole bunch of writers on Music Row. The songwriting, I feel like the goodness of songs, right, is like kind of diminished because we're just shooting for like whatever sounds like radio. And so that's really discouraging. I've talked to a lot of my publisher friends, and just the songs are not what they used to be. It is the scarcity of like, we need to just get a single in order to make money.
So there's much less diversity in the writing.
Yes.
That just seems like it is signing its own death certificate.
Oh, it's horrible.
If you're only writing one thing, like we're talking about, obviously, like listener consumption, all of that, the pop country single nowadays is already like a meme joke. It's trucks and beer and girls. And like the general public gets tired of that. And it, like you said, the structure doesn't incentivize breaking that mold.
I know. It's really a bummer. the other thing I will add to that, and I haven't done this experiment, I guess in the last year, but maybe it was a year or two ago, I just went through the entire Billboard, and this is talking specifically country music, went through the top 60 songs on the chart. And I just went through every song and I highlighted all of the songs that were not by the artist, where the artist wasn't in the room or on the song. And it was only 10 out of those 60 songs were like outside cuts. What that says of what's happening now is, I mean, Nashville has gotten really campy where you have to be in the room with whoever artist that you're trying to write. You've got to be in the room so that they can write on it. And that, I think, has also changed dramatically the quality of songs that are coming out on the radio. I don't want to speak ill against all of these country writers, but the truth is some of these country artists that are on these songs, they'll even say themselves, like, I'm not even a songwriter. I don't really know why I'm here, but here I am. And I think it really causes the quality of song to suffer immensely. Or if we go back to like when I first moved to town and started writing for country radio, people would cut what they call outside songs. Tim McGraw records songs that he doesn't write. That's just becoming fewer and fewer nowadays, which is wild.
Yeah. And I think I would imagine it's like on every side, income is diminishing. So I'm sure these artists are like, okay, how do I increase my income? Okay, I need to be in the writing room and get part of the writing share.
Yeah, especially if it's on radio.
Yeah. Also, maybe there's an element of the emotional side of, like a cultural trend of if I'm the singer and the artist, I can't just be a singer or an artist. I also need to be a writer. So as long as I'm contributing, I don't know. I'm making all this stuff up. I've never talked to a pop country artist. I don't know what their mindset is. I've never talked to a current day pop country artist. I want to specify because that's different than like I'm thinking of Mary Chapin Carpenter and like Roseanne Cash and like just a different
But also they were
time.
songwriters.
Yes.
They wrote songs.
Yes, exactly. But I'm also curious, like, there's so many things bouncing in my head and not trying to just be like, this sucks. Everything sucks. But it's like, it makes it so that also then I would think the artists are not necessarily looking for the best songs, but they're like, who are the hot writers? Okay, there's a pool of 5 top writers. They have the number ones. Well, then I need to write with them and they'll get me a number one rather than listening and looking for the songs that really speak to them and like feels like a different world than like what I have heard historically, like people like Tim McGraw and Faith Hill's choices, like Faith Hill, like hearing of Lori McKenna songs, an unknown songwriter from Massachusetts at the time. It was 5 kids and she just fell in love with the songs. That feels very unlikely to happen in today's climate.
I would say yes and no. From my understanding, a lot of the younger generation, a lot of our Zennials, kind of up and coming, or TikTok artists, people like that, from my understanding, they don't actually really care about the hit songwriter. And it's really who's there at the beginning, the ground up. And then they kind of just keep their little team, right? So that's one thing, because then I'm going and writing with TikTok artists who maybe aren't even songwriters, but they're really green, but they feel sick. You know what I mean? In the event that you would hope you would rise with them, right? But then, on the other side, there is still the group of artists that just pick the X hit writer and cut only those songs. And it is interesting because it's a smaller group of writers are writing the biggest country song.
Yeah.
Kind of wild.
So going back to kind of like the finances of it, because the reality of the finances of being a musician today is something I feel like is still so secretive a lot. Like we don't really want to know what everybody's making. And I feel like the non-musician civilian fans really don't understand the breakdown. But sometimes I feel like if I share the reality, I'm like a little self-conscious that people are like, are you an idiot? Like, what are you doing in this life? Like,
no.
Just because like the numbers are pretty bad sometimes. So I'm not asking you to reveal bad stuff. I'm asking like just for some scope. Like you're saying having an album cut on a Miley Cyrus record is not like enough of life-changing money or even like income.
No, I would compare it to like a teacher's salary.
Okay. From one song on the record.
From one song. And there's like multiple writers that are like on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get a country radio hit, and let's say it's a 3-way, you can make like 300,000 on one song that's going number one on radio as like a song that's split, right? Because it's about $1 million that the song is getting ish, depending on the song and how fast it goes up the chart. And so, that's a whole nother zero.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother zero.
Yeah.
It's a big deal between 30,000 or 300,000, that's streaming versus radio. That's so hard to get. Yeah. The radio single. And especially now, it's like even harder. It's a wild world. We can talk more about numbers. I'll talk about numbers all day.
The discrepancy is just so crazy of just most of the time, the large majority of what you write, no matter how successful, what your track record is as a writer, most of it is just going to be a song that may or may not see the light of day. And if it does see the light of day, it's going to be a trickle. And then every now and then you have this like rocket ship. And like every now and then is like, could be once a year, could be once every 5 years, could be, which is
once
also
a career.
Or once a career. I know, like I'm just trying to write like I'm going to lose you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can that happen again? That'd be great. We'd love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The majority of what we do, like that is the work. Keep the wheel going down the road and keep it spinning.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
For sure.
Patience.
You also just never know because sync too. I mean, you could, I was grateful enough to get a Mercedes commercial this Christmas, and like Think Money is like really great. Granted, I didn't have deal recouped in the label and the master. So like, but in theory, I could have made a lot of money. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you didn't, your deal saw that money. It's not like you got that check that then you could pay for Christmas presents and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The sync world is mostly the world that I live in. I love making records with artists and like going deep and making things that last and have longevity. That's my passion. Like I always say, like I want to help artists make somebody else's favorite record. The kind of record that like, the whatever, like the 16-year-old girl like wears the CD out in her room or whatever it is. That's what I love. That's the stuff that moves me. Also, I like writing for sync in like the weird framework that it is of like you have to write a song that doesn't sound like it's for sync, but it is fully for sync.
Exactly. And you have to say something, but you actually can't say too much because then it's distracting. So.
It has to be vague enough that it could fit anywhere, but as soon as you put it behind a picture, it seems like it's written specifically for that scene. The biggest placements I've gotten, like we've written the song in like 2 hours, and then I finished producing and mixing it in like another 6 maybe.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it gets this big paycheck and it's like, wow. And then like I'll labor over a record that like Michaela and I spend like literally hundreds of hours on this record.
Yes.
And I'm really proud of it, but it
won't make that. But maybe one of the songs on the record is going to get placed.
Yeah, exactly.
Manifest that.
Yeah.
Okay, because we did this new format, I don't have the clock staring at me, and I just realized we've blown past our hour with you because this has been such an enjoyable.
So much fun. We can talk. We can keep talking.
But we like to always close with one last question.
It's kind of choose your own adventure question. It's either something that somebody has told you along the way that continues to resonate with you, or something that you would tell yourself back when you first moved to Nashville, first got into this kind of making a career out of your art.
The advice question.
Yeah.
If I could go back and talk to my 20-year-old self, I wish I would have not cared so much about what other people thought. And I think I'm doing a fairly good job at extinguishing the people pleasing. But the sooner I feel like you can do that, especially as an artist, where you can just be like, this is my voice, these are my songs, this is what I'm going to do, whatever. If you don't align with it, doesn't matter. The sooner I would have been able to learn that lesson, it would have been really helpful. But there's been a lot of advice that I've gotten through the years from the writing room. One I shared earlier was like, I don't believe in writer's block. I think that can be a lie that we tell ourselves to just not do the work. And so, if you can't think of anything to write about, you're not paying attention. You can literally just write about anything. If you're feeling just kind of blah, then just write about that.
Yeah.
And so writer's block isn't a thing. That's what I like to tell young songwriters. And I don't know, not being so precious with each song. Write 50 songs. And then I think Bob Dylan might have said this. Write 50 songs and then like throw them in the trash. And then write 50 more. Or whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's you want to be the artist, you want to be a songwriter, you need to find all of the avenues to do it every single day. When I was younger, I had a sound system that I would throw in the back of my Dodge Neon, and I would go and I would play coffee shop, college, and I just gigged all around as like a 16, 17-year-old because like I wanted to just get better at playing shows and took every crappy gig. And so for those of you listening that are out there that are just getting started and trying to figure out how do I do it, you just have to start by doing it somewhere, no matter how small, because every little step teaches you something to grow in some way.
Yeah.
That's
I love
what I'd
that.
say.
Love
Just
it.
do it, baby.
Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
Caitlyn, thank you so much for taking time this morning to sit and
Thank
chat
you
with us
guys.
and share
It was
everything.
so lovely.
So nice to see you.
Same. Thank you guys. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Thank you to all of you who subscribe to our Patreon or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get our show. If you haven't subscribed yet, take a second to do that right now, and we'll see you back here next week.